Hello and welcome to the Identification of Unknowns lab. Today we're going to be using a spot plate and some unknown samples with known samples, do some mixing of the two and see what reactions take place, and with that we will identify what the unknowns are. So you should have a lab report like this. We have a list of compounds and some possible formulas, some possible results we could be getting from these, and what to look for when we combine these two aqueous solutions. And then you will be filling out a table like this of what the observation was. In any of these combinations, maybe they stay clear, maybe a product turns black or orange or white. Either way, you will be using that information to determine the identity of these unknowns based on what our product was. So for this lab, since we are working with chemicals such as sulfuric acid and hydrochloric acid, we're going to need some safety equipment like goggles, and put those on. And we are also going to need some gloves. So if you were in the lab, you would find a pair of gloves that fit you well, nothing too loose or too tight. And for this example, I will wear some. So we have our chemicals here. We have our unknowns. So it's easiest just to put those in order. On your paper, it says 1 through 6. These are labeled A through E, or through F, I mean. So make sure you just make a note of that. When I say I'm pouring A into something, I mean 1, and so on. So we also have our samples. So we have some sodium sulfide, sodium iodide, sulfuric acid, sodium hydroxide, hydrochloric acid, and silver nitrate. So what I'm going to do with this list is we will go down. I will start with sample A, and I will announce which one of these I am combining with the sample, and we will notice the observations and make sure you take good notes, because then by the end, when this whole table is filled out, you can start to pinpoint what those may be, what products may have occurred. So for this, we're going to need some spot plates. We have some nice white ones here. And for the camera's sake, in case these white ones do not show up well, we also have some clear ones that I might shift to. There's going to be a total of 25 samples run. And so since this only holds 24, if this works out well, I'll just use one more from this spot plate. So let's begin. We have unknown A. It is orange. It is see-through as well, so we're going to put 5 drops of this into our spot plate. And that's kind of hard to see on the camera that far away. Nice little orange blob there. It's a little better. Maybe I'll just get a little lower for you guys. That looks pretty good. And we are going to start on the list. So I'm just going to line up these bottles. Sulfuric acid was first, so make sure to add that first from the line. Let me just do some organizing. And some nitrate. So sulfuric acid is about to go into unknown A. Add about 5 drops, see the changes that occur. I'll get nice and close for you guys. 1. So we see a slight shift in the color. What was orange in this clear sulfuric acid bottle, we have something that got kind of white. I wouldn't say full white, a little milky. Still a little clear, but it's definitely not orange anymore. So if you were to put some notes down, any one of those descriptions would work. Again, just keep in mind as we do this, There's going to be a lot of samples that might be white, some that are clear as well. It's not one of these reactions that's going to help you. It's the combination of one of these results as well as looking at what other similar things come into play. So we're going to do sample A again. We're just going to go right no, maybe more than that. Hold on, just doing the math in my head. Either way, we'll combine it. So, I'm doing A again, put about 5 drops in, and now I'm combining our hydrochloric acid. I'm gonna put about 5 drops in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it got diluted a little bit. Let me make sure this reacts. But still kind of orange. I'd say it was trying to get turned, but it could also just be the combination of a clear liquid that kind of made it less orange. I would probably put this down as not much of a reaction. So we're gonna combine now A into sodium hydroxide. So here's our A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drops sodium hydroxide, and this one's really turning. If you can see it, there's the 5th drop, and it's really gotten a lot brighter. It's kind of browning at first. You can see the orange mixed with that brown. It's definitely darker than it was before, with some kind of spotting in there. So there's our first 3. Give you some time to write that down as I prepare A for the next one. So notice the color difference between just normal A and how bright that got. So next up is sodium iodide. Make sure these stay in order. Sodium iodide. So that was kind of delayed. Definitely got brighter orange, no spots. Just got orange. Going back to A again. And now I am combining silver nitrate. So this is wrapped in aluminum foil because silver nitrate can break down with light, and we want to make sure that the silver nitrate stays what it needs to be, especially with these reactions. But in this case, not much. There was orange before, maybe got a little milky. It's somewhat comparable to our hydrochloric acid, except definitely darker. I don't think it reacted too much at first, but a little something there. I don't know if that's much of a change. You can put slight change. Again, let's compare this to the color of just A. It's still pretty similar. I don't know if much happened, but switch to sodium sulfide. Again, we'll see how that silver reacts to other ones. With it being wrapped in aluminum foil, it definitely helps to maintain its integrity, but it could still break down just with usage. So if it doesn't react, we'll keep that in mind, but I have a good feeling it still will. So this one, our sodium sulfide, is definitely a change. As you can see, there's some brown streaks in there. Good color change. That shows up well on the video. So yeah, whatever you see there. Again, if you missed any of these, our first one got a little less milky, but I'm just going in order on our table. And that was all of A. Moving on to B. Here's 5 drops. And we will add sulfuric acid. Just to double check, always make sure you're adding the right one. And not much of a change. Might be a little hard to see with the white. You could argue maybe slight milky, kind of a light bluish, or definitely not clear. Well, it is clear, but not like full transparent. Not much of a color to that. So here we have some contamination. I added B to the plate and it reacted with something. So I'm just going to clean that up. And if this happens in the lab, what we do, besides clearing the whole thing, I have some deionized water. And here, we can just put a little bit of that into here. Always keep some paper towels nearby. That helps. Just soak that right up. Let's try that again. It's a lot better than what it was. And so we are adding hydrochloric acid to this. Decent amount of drops. Same thing as before with the sulfuric acid. It's not much, definitely milkier than the other one. You know, I'd say it's definitely a lot more kind of cloudy, as you can kind of see. Compared to what we had with cloudy before, it's definitely a lot more very white. So I would call that, it changed to white. Solid color on that. And we'll move on to the next one. B again. And now we are adding sodium hydroxide. So this one is definitely a brown. If I'm mistaken on colors, I apologize. Slight color blindness, but describing the brown streaks in this one, this is so much more of a solid greenish brown, dirty in color. So yeah, write that down. Whatever you see too, again, don't just take my observation for it. You have a great view with this camera to see the difference in these. I'll move along here a little faster. We have sodium iodide up. And it's yellow, light, kind of milky, not transparent anymore. Again, sodium iodide is clear and colorless. So combining with B, which is also colorless, this is definitely a change. Jot that down as I prepare the next one. Which is silver nitrate. And I don't see any change with that one. Now we have sodium sulfide. Showing a clear change right there. Definitely got dark brown, some spots in there. Again, not as solid as this one, but definitely some spots with that. All right, moving on. Unknown C. Now I'm just gonna put all the 5 drops in. Let's make that easier. Get this whole line ready. So now everything in this line is filled with C. Save some time there. Adding our sulfuric acid. So I mean, it was turning white nearly immediately on that first drop. Some good lighting there. Hydrochloric acid. Not really much change. There's a bubble in there, but yeah, it stayed pretty clear. All right. Sodium hydroxide. So this one, I don't know if you could tell on the camera, it kind of gave a little bit of spotting, like it knew something was in there. It definitely reacted slightly. I wouldn't go on to say that it's that cloudy milky that we look for, but kind of a lightish bluish tinge to it. Again, just keep that in mind for your notes in case some of these add up, make sense. In this case with the sodium hydroxide, look for those OH ions or the sodium combining with the any possible ions with one of the unknowns. As we saw with the sodium hydroxide before, it definitely reacted. Maybe it just didn't do it here. And all right, moving on. Sodium iodide. And not much really to that. I'd say no change. Here's our silver nitrate. So it's clouding up a little bit. Kind of that white solid was slowly moving through the clearness, and as I said before, again, this one was pretty white before and it's dissipating. This one looked just like that one used to be. If I'm going too fast, I'm sorry. You can always pause this video. And sodium sulfide, clouding up again as we're going. I'd say about the same thing, maybe a little less white. And there we go. All right, moving on. We have unknown D. This is kind of a light blue. Compare it to unknown E. They're both kind of in that bluish range. A little bit of a difference to each one. This one's kind of, it looks cloudier because of the bottle that it's stored in, but they're pretty similar in color. Not that that matters, you'll even tell with the reactions. So here's D. Same thing as C. Just so this video isn't too long, we're gonna add a little bit into each of these spot plates. Something in that one. There we go. So, sulfuric acid. No change. It got a little lighter blue just from the dilution. It did not react. Hydrochloric acid. Slight to none. It didn't change much, as you can tell from these two. Sodium hydroxide. So we have some nice blue streaks in here to react a little more. But definitely a change. Definitely turned blue. A lot more than it was. Sodium iodide. Turned yellow. Now kind of turning more orange. Definitely getting darker with that. That was a nice change. So something like this, just make sure you note full reaction of that. I'd say it ended up with that dark orange. Getting almost to a red and some brown in there, but don't take my word for it. Use your own eyes to note those observations. Next on our list, silver nitrate. This one's forming that cloudy white, and as it reacts fully, it stays. I think that's a glare you're getting. Kind of looks like a little bit of blueness, but mainly white. And sodium sulfide. So this one, kind of hard to tell. Definitely got darker. At this point, it's kind of looking green. For a second there, it's kind of like a reddish brown. Yeah, some green. Something to keep in mind. Okay, let's see how these spots look on this clear plate. We gotta continue on, and we will get to E and F now. So this one, I'm gonna put the E into these two lines. I might, if it's not shown up well, I will get another white plate. Sorry for the noise. So that's all of E. That shows up decently. I will stick with that. I apologize for changing the color on it, but you never know in the lab what spot plate you get. So our sulfuric acid. You know what? Let's switch to a white one. I'll grab it if you're in the lab. You can see that there's a lot of cations. Things are stored. This is a brand new white one. So back to it. Again, this one's a little different. Put an E in all these side rows. And now our sulfuric acid. And I'd say about no change to that one. Okay. Hydrochloric acid going in the top middle. Trying to get that bubble out, but again, no change. Both these are a little whiter than before, but I wouldn't say full on cloudy white. Sodium hydroxide. So just like with D, E turned blue as well with the sodium hydroxide. Should note that blue, some clearness still in there. Sodium iodide now. Note that change in the color to an orangish. Okay. Silver nitrate now into this second row middle. So there's definitely a reaction going with that. Some change, maybe just forming, but cloudy. Maybe nothing. Now that we're seeing, I think there's some cloudiness forming when I put it in, but I think it was just the solution going in. There's not much change to that. And finally, sodium sulfide, right over here. It's looking kind of green with some tinges of red, but green. All right, one more look at all these. Again, this was unknown E, and we just went in order going this way. And last one is F. Here is our sulfuric acid. I'd go with no change on that one. Hydrochloric acid into the middle. No real change. I think there's a shadow or something at the bottom that you're seeing from that bubble. Sodium hydroxide. No real change on that one either. Sodium iodide. And that's no change. Now, if you were in the lab doing this your first time, you might think, you know, maybe this solution's bad. You keep your notes, you know, noting that, hey, we just had 4 in a row where there was no change. It's always good to keep in mind possible errors. Last time this was reported, there was no change as well. So it's just a solution. It's not anything bad about unknown F. Now, here's our silver nitrate. There's definitely some change going on with this one. It's turning milky, kind of a cloudy off-white. Not as much as other whites we've seen, but definitely different than these other samples. And finally, our sodium sulfide. And no real change on that one either. So if I was doing this, if I was in your situation, I would start with the other ones and try and find out F last, since there's not a lot to tell. The very cool thing about this whole experiment is all these color changes, these did not exist in this room before we started this lab. These are all new things that we've just created. And if you note the differences and followed what possible reactions there are, you will be able to identify it by filling out your table. And that is the lab. Again, we would, if you were in this lab, you would dispose of this down the sink. All these are safe with enough flushed water. Once you've done that and thrown away your used paper towels, you put these back into the tray, take off your gloves, and just make sure everything is picked up and your hands are washed. And that has been the identification of unknowns. Do the work on your own. You should be able to finish this lab. Good luck.